We're off, are we? I think the most interesting thing coming from it as a designer is the challenge of it all. It's only about 3 or 4 years ago, one of the biggest challenges was that everything seemed so basic, particularly if you came from different media like print or advertising or CD-ROM. There was the getting over the sort of basics of it. You only had a few colours you could use, only a few typefaces you could use, all the file size had to be dramatically small. And very rapidly that has all sort of moved on because the whole internet is a communications network. Ideas spread very, very quickly, and as each sort of new innovation comes along, you're just sort of dying to sort of use them. Unfortunately, quite often the users don't keep up with the pace of the developments that are going on. So with each new plug-in technology, for example, you keep thinking, well, that's great, I don't have to worry about this problem I had previously, but of course you've still got all those problems all the time, so it's very, very challenging. But now things happen at such a pace, and one of the biggest challenges is actually keeping up with all the innovations, wanting to be part of those innovations. And that's what's really so interesting about working somewhere like Amaze, is because we have so many people from different backgrounds that there's always a different perspective on the work that we do. We can always gather those expertise together where it's appropriate and have a really good pool of knowledge.
From that, I think my role as a designer, I see our process is lacking. We need a lot more of a theoretical base to this. We can't produce in isolation, either as technologists or creatives. There has to be a whole lot more history and personal stuff to this. I mean, to me, the most valuable experience I've ever had from anyone to do with the internet has been a psychologist, and their expertise they bring to the field of how people interact and how people exist and conduct business and go about their lives. And really that was just so valuable, so much more than these people who have invented the internet and worked for Apple and whoever they've worked for. I mean, a psychologist, every business needs a psychologist. We all need to be psychologists to a certain extent.
My God, Amaze is changing the world with everything that we build, create and develop. Our combinations of creative thinking, strategic thought and also technical expertise is right out there with the best of them. For me, internet means changing my life, making it better from day to day, from everything from doing the shopping to educating my child to actually entertaining me. And Amaze is actually offering all those solutions.
To me, the most unique thing about what Amaze does is our ability to design the most intuitive navigation systems that are really based around how a user is going to work their way around the digital environment. So what we do is we really utilize the medium to its fullest potential by taking content and structuring it and giving access to it in a way that you can't possibly do using other media.
Hi, I'm going to give you a quick talk on how to make massive profits on the internet. And basically, you can't. If you think that going online is all about making huge profits compared to your competitors, you're going to be sadly mistaken. You might be able to get away with it for a few years until they catch up and they get online, but at the end of the day, getting online is about surviving. In about 3 or 4 years' time, everyone will do it. They won't be making huge profits out of it, but at least they'll still be trading. The important thing is to get online to ensure your company's survival. It's just a new business model, a new and much more efficient way of working, and if you're not in there, you will not be able to compete. But if you are, don't expect to make a huge profit. What will make you huge profits is the same thing that made you huge profits in the old environment, and that is good customer service, superior products, and a much more efficient cost base than anybody else. It's competition, it's relativity. The internet is just the new platform for operating, and you'll all be on it sooner or later.
The impact of new technology on an organisation, on its people, is very important. So actually managing the change within an organisation is equally important and needs to be considered. As the internet has gone from being primarily a marketing tool to actually affecting people day to day, the way they do their jobs, the core business processes. So you need to consider that. You need to consider how you're going to train people, give them new skills. You need to think how they might perceive the change on their own jobs and what it will mean to their lifestyle. You need to think about how you communicate that to them to actually allay their fears. So for example, to actually plan for a communications campaign, to plan your training materials and how you're going to train your staff, as well as putting in performance support materials which will actually enable your staff to undergo continued learning once the new solution is in the organisation.
My experience of the internet, where I think it should be going now as a designer. For me, the internet's broken up into sort of two streams at the moment, sort of like purely transactional. You build something, you have an objective, you want to achieve that goal and get out. In a lot of cases that's good, and it's necessary as people spread their businesses into an online environment. But I think to provide that as something pure is not enough. We can go out and have a transactional experience in the street, and it can be a lot more rewarding. You have the environment, you have the people, and so much more. And I think as designers and creative technologists, we need to be imbuing this whole experience with so much more. Personally, I would rather shop in the street than shop on the internet. I think we need to be creating environments to be in as the internet and as sort of media converges. There are the possibilities and the need to sort of create a whole environment to exist and play in, rather than just an object to build, to transact, to achieve something very simply. To me, that's very male. I'm not going to get on my feminist soapbox, that is very male. You have the way boys and girls play. Boys have a goal they need to achieve. They go out there very businesslike and strict, they achieve it, and you know that's the reward. Girls create environments and whole story and a lot more, and I think that's really good. I really think that is where we need to be going. Otherwise people are just going to stay on the street and shop.
So when we're telling a story or communicating this complex set of information, one of the things we use is navigation. Navigation is, again, we should look at the real world to understand the best way to navigate things. Navigation, when you can ask two people the way to a cinema, and depending on various factors, sometimes they'll give you information which helps you get there, other times you'll get lost. Now, what are the things that determine whether they're going to be helpful or not? One of the key things is whether they know you. Once they know you, they can give you the right sort of information to help you find your way. They may know that you're not local, so we have to give very explicit information referring to visual landmarks. That might help. If you are local, they can actually refer to streets. If they know you really well, they can refer to personal experiences as a way of navigating space, navigating a town. So when we use navigation in a website or in an internet application, we should think of it in those terms as well. We should say, who is the person we're navigating? Who is the person that's trying to find their way? What do they know? And we should use context, we should use things that are familiar to them, and concepts and visual identities which are familiar to them to help them find their way. And we should always strive to fully understand our user.
One of the great things that I found about Amaze when I joined, speaking from a developer's point of view, is the fact that I get the opportunity to work with people who spend time thinking about how to structure information, about how an application should work properly, and how people would use that application. I also get to work with some great designers, and we underpin all that thought and design with good solid software engineering principles. So what you get is a great looking application that looks fabulous, that has been thought about and works very well, and is designed for the user's needs, but also is solid and reliable and functions properly, and it, as I said, is underpinned with traditional, well-established software principles. So we're marrying that, to quote Apple, the thinking different with thinking the same in terms of what is proven in terms of software engineering to work well.